the record, and then I'm going to share it to Facebook right now.
Woo, I'm blurry. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Okay, let me fix the camera so it's not cutting your head off.
That's okay. That's not my good part anyway. That's not my good side.
There. Oh, no, now they can't see what you're doing.
They can now.
There. Let it focus.
Blurry.
There you go, guys.
Oh.
Okay?
Hi, Josh.
Hi there.
Cookie.
Cookie, sorry.
No, it's fine. So you said this is...
Can't hear me. She's not in the room. Are we ready?
Yep, ready. I'm sharing it right now.
Okay. I can't hear a thing you said, so I'm going to pretend that you said you're ready. All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Lady Grumpy. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Lady Grumpy, and I am going to show you how to make class sashes, which is kind of weird because I don't fight, but you know, hey, I do craft. Class sashes, you usually sew. You sew them together and they're beautiful and they're wonderful. But what if you don't sew? Or what if your sewing machine is broke, or you're on the way to an event and realize that your sashes are at home on the dining room table? Or you just don't want to sew them together. I have an idea. When you're quilting, there's a type of quilt that's called a rag quilt. And what it is that you cut these squares or these strips and you tie them together. Okay, you knot them together in little sections, and then you knot those sections together. And each section it makes it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes a quilt. So using the same principle, look, I started wedding. You could knot together a sash and not have to sew it at all. And it'll last forever as long as you don't, cut it or stomp on it. Take care of it. If you use two different colors of material, then it is fully reversible. Like this one I have made in Bardic blue and black. So I'm an assassin bard. Okay. This is one I have pre-cut and I have already started on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of pre-cut fabric and we're going to start one together. We're going to do one the proper way, and then we're going to do one in a way that's more, I'm going to call it the down and dirty way. Okay. What we're going to do is you take your piece of fabric and you measure out length that is going to fit you. Okay, look, it fits me and it's lovely. Okay, why am I so blurry? But I am blurry, but that's okay. And then I have to move in order to all right. In order to do a sash, class sashes have to be at least 3 inches wide. I made this piece of fabric right now. It is 11 inches wide. Why so huge? Well, I want it to be at least 3 inches wide when we're done. And I am going to cut 2 to 2.5 off of either side. So I'm cutting 5 inches off of it, which by the time I cut the sides and I knot them, I'm going to end up with a sash that's approximately 4.5 inches wide. It's a little bit wider than a standard sash, but it's going to sit nice and people are going to be able to see it from quite a distance away. Okay, so you're going to take an acrylic ruler or a cutting mat, and you're going to lay your fabric on it. And the first thing you're going to do is something that, again, taking elements of quilting, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to go to your corner and you're going to cut 2 inches in from that corner on both sides. 2 inches here and 2 inches here. So I'm cutting a square. Do you see what I did? I snipped these 2 inches. Okay, so I'm going to cut my square so that it meets 2 inches in. And you'll see why I do that in just a second. So I have my 2-inch square. You're going to do this on all 4 ends. You're going to take and you're going to cut your 2-inch square, okay, on all 4 ends. So I have my 2s and I'm cutting my 2-inch square. What? Telling me to move the table?
You can, I said.
Okay, so I'm moving my 2 inches. And I'm moving my 2 inches, which is here, which I'm eyeballing at this point, but I've done this a few times because I'm old. Okay, so I've done that. Now, you're going to take and you say, well, how do I know how big to make my cuts along the side? You want them to be 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Okay, 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide. Here's your 1.5 inches. Okay, you want them to be about this wide. Okay, and you're just gonna snip for right now. Just snip it down. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? We've made a snip. Okay, you can come back and snip later if you wish. You can measure it out first and do all of your initial 1.5 inch cuts, or you can cut your 1.5 inches and go ahead and mark up 2 inches and cut there. Okay, and you'll see that we have marked 2-inch cut. You want to do that down the entire length of your material. All right, so you're going to take your cutting mat, all right, and you have, and you're going to mark using the length of your cutting mat 1 inch apart, or your acrylic ruler, 1 inch to 1.5 inches, whichever you're more comfortable with, all the way down the length of your fabric, cutting through both layers of fabric at the same time. You want to make sure that you're cutting both layers the same length when you make your cuts. You're going to make cuts, they're going to end up to be about 2 to 2.5 inches in. Once you get to the end of your cutting mat, just go ahead and pull the fabric down. Or if you have a bigger mat or a longer table, well, that's nice too. Now, the nice thing about this project is that you can do it in several different steps and different sessions. say you're going to clan, or you're going to keep on the borderlands, or you're going to symposium or salt wars, and it's a long car ride or it's a plane ride and you're afraid you're going to be bored. Fine, pre-cut your fabric. Cut your fabric to the length that you need. Make all of these tidy, beautiful cuts and roll it up. Put it in your backpack. Put it in your carry-on luggage. Pretend that you're going to use it as a pillow and bring it with you. Then, when you're in the car, train, bus, airplane, boat, you can take it out and start the next step. And the next step of this is the fun part, because God knows all of this cutting can be tedious. It's still better than hand sewing a sash together on the way to an event. Okay. Do you want to not hold this up? All righty then. That's going to be fun. You can't see her, but I have a lovely assistant, and she's holding the camera. Otherwise, I get really blurry. So y'all need to send like aspirin and flowers to my lovely assistant. Okay, does anyone have any questions? If you do have any questions, just let me know and I will be happy to answer them. If you don't have any questions, you're welcome to think of some. I encourage questions. I know a lot of people, when they hear no sew, they think loner. They think, oh, well, I can just tie some strips of old cloth or hand towels or rip up a t-shirt or something, and then it doesn't matter because it's it's disposable. But this is actually something that's worth keeping around. It's reversible because that way you can use it as two different clasp sashes. It's not poorly constructed. It's actually very well made. I like to use fleece because then it doesn't fray and it stays together better. It's washable and doesn't fall apart in the wash. Therefore, you can wash it and it doesn't retain the body odor of 1,000 battles. You can use it for loner garb, but you don't have to. This is also a nice little way to enter an arts and science competition without having to be uber crafty. It's a great way to get your class sashes. Being new, it's not expensive. I'm not weaving my paracord class sashes. I'm not learning to crochet my class sashes. I haven't had to go invest in a sewing machine, not knowing whether or not I'm going to stick with this hobby, not knowing how to sew. This is a really good way. And again, I'm going to do my 2 inches by 2 inch square at the corner. And I'm going to cut that right out. Boop. Okay, so you see what we are doing. Okay, we've got one whole side done. Yay!
So
and now we're going to go in and we're going to do the same thing here. Again, you see that we are using the cutting mat, which is of course the proper way to measure something for sewing. All right, a lot of judges and if you were going to enter something, or when people talk to you, they're very much, they want to know that you know how to do, that you're making sure that you're doing it correctly. You know, did you use your cutting mat? Did you use your ruler? Did you mark everything? Did you follow the proper preconceived steps? Did you do it the same way that everyone else did? I mean, this is how it's done. And sometimes that's wonderful, but sometimes it isn't necessary. Once you've been doing it for a while, or maybe you learned to do it from somebody who's been doing it for a really long time, and they showed you the ways that maybe they learned it, and they didn't do all that, and that's okay too. I'm going to show you on this side of this sash, I don't have a cutting mat, and I'm in the car on the boat. My darling, would you like the box? The cat needs to come down. There she is. She needed the box. Or the plane, and you were not the plane because you wouldn't have scissors, but maybe you're on some other form of transportation, and you don't have your cutting mat and you don't have your acrylic ruler, but you still need to make your 2.5 inch cuts or your 1.5 inch cuts. Okay, you're going to slide your pointer finger under the edge, the cut edge of your material, and you're going to grab it with the finger next to it so it overlaps like this. And then you're going to cut along the inside edge of your index finger. From the end here where your finger meets the palm of your hand to the tip of your pointer finger. And you're going to say, Grumpy, you're an insane woman. And well, yes, that's true. But if you look at the measurement of this, I'm going to show you that this here, that measurement is an inch. Okay? 1 inch, using your pointer finger underneath being held by the finger next to your pointer finger. And then if you go from where the bottom joint of your pointer finger all the way to the top of your pointer finger. Okay, do you see what I'm doing right here? You will see this ruler is 2 inches across. You will see that this is 2 inch cut. Now, some of you may not have as long of fingers, and that's fine. You can go back and add a little bit later, but you'll have that initial cut. If you're holding this and you have smaller fingers and you pull this down to cut it, it's still going to pull a little bit extra material over, and it's going to be enough material over that it's going to be that inch. Now, I sometimes end up with 1.5 inches because I don't pay attention to what I'm doing because I get into a rhythm, and instead of holding it right at the edge, I'll have a little bit over here at the end on this side hanging out. And when I do that, instead of getting 1 inch, I will end up with, as you can see, I've ended up with 1.5 inches, which is still okay. But I've done that without the cutting mat and without this acrylic ruler. All right. It's not necessary. I can still make this no-sew reversible piece of garb without a ruler and a cutting mat. And it's still going to turn out just fine. So just because you don't have all of the equipment that they think you need in order to sew properly, doesn't mean you have to have it. Just means you have to adapt and overcome. You can do this. Anybody can sew. Anybody can do this. Okay, anybody can create a class sash, a spell ball, a cloak, tunics, tabards, pants, and do it without a sewing machine, and do it without sewing mats, and without cutting mats and all of that. You just have to adapt. And they're not throwaway garb, and they're not throwaway sashes, and you don't have to make them out of old t-shirts or dish towels. And they're just as nice as anything else anybody else will put out. They're creative. They're unique. They're special. They stand out. And isn't that what we all want to do? Be unique and special and stand out. If we didn't want to be unique and special and stand out, we wouldn't be in Amgard. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be an assassin healer if I didn't want to be unique and special. But this is what you can do. So here we are, cutting down this side. And you will see that it doesn't look damaged or inferior to the side that was done on the cutting mat. Oh, look, the cutting mat side and the side that I'm doing with my hand are the same. Sometimes it's not the tools that make the difference, it's the heart. And that's okay too. So we cut, and we cut, and we cut. And you don't have to make everything backed with an assassin color. I know that I have a barred assassin sash over here that I've already started and I showed you. And I'm working on a healer assassin. That's because I had a lot of black fleece and not a whole lot of other colors. And I didn't want to go out and buy fleece because, like I said, I'm a 912 level color. It's not a real level, but you know, it should be. but I'm sure that I have friends that are healers and or assassins that need sashes. And I know I have at least one bard friend that definitely needs a sash. And I can gift these to people. Besides, fleece is wonderful. And if you're a guy and you're thinking to yourself, why do I need a fleece sash? It brings out your softer side. It's so fuzzy and warm. You know, you lull your opponents into a false sense of, oh, look, he's warm and fuzzy. And then bam, you know. Also, when I was picking out the material, I was totally thinking Starfleet. There's Starfleet Medical, and then there's those poor red shirts that are disposable. Eek. Stop. This is really the most tedious step, is all the cutting. And honestly, when I was making quilts and making rag quilts, which I actually still do make rag quilts, I don't do a whole lot of the more complicated types.
What
of
are rag quilts?
anymore. My eyesight is not super good anymore. This is, I would cut out all my strips first and then just roll up these parts and wait until later, and then I could just sit and watch TV and make ties, make my knots. Or I could, like I said, I could do it in the car while we were traveling. You can take it to park and sit and do it, you know. Oh no, I've been injured on the field. I sprained my whatever. I sprained my uvula. And I have to rest. So you could sit there and still be part of that whole fighting scene by making your class sash.
Give an explanation of a rag.
Oh, a rag quilt is a quilt. I know I'm sitting here talking about them, and you may not know what that is. A rag quilt is a quilt that is made from, you start off with a 12-inch square, and all the way around the square, you cut, just like I did here. You're going to cut a 2-inch square on the corners, on each corner, and you're going to cut in 2 to 2.5 inches for tying. And you tie each of those squares to another square. And then after you've tied all around those squares, then you add more squares, and it grows from a center block of 4 squares. Then you add another row of squares all the way around, and it grows out. And you decide how big your quilt is by how many squares you add. The easiest way to describe it is just, it's kind of like the crocheting or Afghan making of quilting. They make granny squares when they make Afghans, and then they go back, they make all of their squares, and then they go back and they add all of their granny squares together, and it makes a one big Afghan. It's kind of the same thing with rag quilts. I can make a cloak doing this same thing and never need to sew. in, you know, doing the same thing. Okay, so we've gotten all of our sides and ends, and you say, why did you cut off the 2-inch squares, Grumpy? You didn't explain that. And I'm going to show you why at this time. The reason that we cut off the corners and we cut out that 2-inch square, it's really kind of simple, is because we're going to make knots and we're going to tie everything together. And if I had this whole material, it would form a solid ball of knot. And you wouldn't be able, I mean, if you got hit with it, it would hurt and it would not tie well. So you take this, sorry, darling, you take this out of it and it gives you room to tie. So when you cut that off, you cut that corner.
It's having a hard time focusing.
I'm sorry. That's okay. I don't care that it's recording. I'm a nutball. But when you take that corner off, it gives it time, or gives it a little bit of space so that it's easier when I knot this. Okay, I'm going to start on each side where my corners are. And I like to knot my corners first, simply because it holds everything in place. Right? And it's just like, literally, it's knotting just like knotting anything else. Okay, I've made a knot. It's not going anywhere. Haha, I've made a knot. It's not going anywhere. It's a little, sorry, it's a little knot joke. And look, now I'm going to the other side and I'm making another knot. Okay. And I've tied them up. And the reason that we go 2.5 inches in is because if we went any less, you wouldn't have enough strip to tie. And you see that even though I cut that corner out, those are really close together. If I had cut it any close, if I had not cut that corner out, you would not be able, I wouldn't have been able to tie it. Okay, it gave me the room to tie the knot. And then you start on either side and you tie. And you go all the way around. Each side. Okay, I'm going to pick this one back up now and I'm going to show you what I have done. I pre-tied down one. I started and I did this entire end. Like I said, I like to start with the corners. You see that this corner is done. And I started and I went around and they look like little bows. They're just knots though, okay? But they're not gonna come undone. All right, and I started and I did this end. And you can see that it is definitely wide enough. It is sturdy. I'm pulling on it. And it's not going anywhere. You can tell that it is an assassin sash on this side. You can tell that it is a bard sash on this side. Now, this is what it looks like. I started this corner. I did this corner. And we started knotting from here. We knotted the corners all the way around the end. Down the sides. You can see we still have plenty of knot, plenty of room. Okay. And we're almost all the way down to the other end on this side. Now, I'm a very large person, and this may not be big enough for me, but it is big enough for a regular normal sized person. If you are making your scarf, sash, scarf, or anything else, and you realize that you've come to this end and it's not long enough, or it's not wide enough. You see, this is the end piece. Okay? This is your end piece. Instead of knotting the two opposite colors together, you're simply going to cut another piece of each color and knot red to red and black to black along the ends, the short ends, and then continue knotting red to black or green to blue or yellow to brown all the way down the sides. You can make it whatever length you want simply by leaving one of the short ends of the sash open and adding additional fabric. You can do this at any time. You can unknot it and add more fabric. It doesn't have to be when you're first making it. You can add fabric later. And you still don't need to sew. Just tie knots. Again, same processes as making a rag quilt. You can use this to make a blanket. You can use this process to make a cloak. You can use this idea to make a reversible spell ball. That takes some additional steps. But again, we still don't need to sew. We just need to make a few adjustments and a few additional cuts and add some ribbon. But this is something that somebody starting out in the game who doesn't have a huge budget, doesn't have a sewing machine, doesn't have a background in arts and crafts, they can do this. Somebody that does have a background in arts and crafts, does have a sewing machine, it just doesn't want to use it. They can do this. Anybody can do this craft. Anybody can make this craft. Anybody. This is accessible to anyone. Children can do this. Blind people could make this craft. They might need help with the cutting, but they could still make the knot and feel accomplished by being able to produce this. This is not out of that reach. It's an inclusive craft. It's something that everybody can do and feel good about doing. It's not an elitist craft. You don't have to buy special equipment. And that's nice. And it's soft. It's fuzzy. And I like that part too, because I'm very tactile. I really hate that my camera makes me blurry.
Sorry.
And I'm sorry that I'm blurry.
Not that bad, don't
I
worry.
would say that it was my glasses, but I'm not sure that it's me. So, yeah. That is really all that I have for this. It doesn't take forever to show you how to do this. We can sit here and tie knots together if we need to. I'm assuming that everybody knows how to tie a knot. Maybe I shouldn't assume that, but I'm going to go ahead and assume it anyway. That everyone knows how to tie a knot. We have gone.
He's gonna end the live stream if you're ready.
I am totally ready for us to say goodbye. So I hope that this was helpful.
Send questions if you need.
If you have questions, please don't hesitate to hit me up gently with any questions. I will say questions. All right, thanks. Bye.
He said it was really helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Did you hear him? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, she heard you.
It was great.
That was nice of you to lie like that, but okay.
I'm not lying.
He's not lying. He wouldn't lie. He doesn't like. He would not say anything at all. Right, Josh?
Thank you for helping me. Like, honestly.
Okay, type it out. She don't hear you.
Oh, okay.
I'm old.
I don't know if he's typing in here or there. That's him. I think that was him. I don't know who else is that. I don't know if that's me. Oh, it was great, and I didn't know what a rag quilt was until you told me. Okay. It's recorded.
Oh, God.
And he's also typing something else.